G'day, weather watchers. Well, this one's been a big one. Last time we talked, we weren't even really considering TC Fina too much. Although she did spin up, she certainly rose above expectations initially. And it probably just goes to something that we talk a lot about on this channel, which is, particularly with tropical systems, you can never write things off. The things change up there in that atmosphere so rapidly. There's so many variables that go into it. So never drop your guard when you're looking at a forecast. Things can change pretty quickly, and that, I believe, is our take home out of this event. Spare a thought for people that are affected in amongst the Western Northern Territory, generally speaking, because big cleanup operations, water damage, some wind damage, the usual things that come about when a cyclone passes through your area. Speaking of, before we jump into the outlook, we're just going to have a bit of a recap on what's happened there with Fina, because she is still obviously now a Category 4 system, severe Category 4, making way towards the Kimberley tip, basically, which is basically due north of Columbaroo. So this is what's currently going on. As you can see, she's spinning up, moving in that southwesterly direction, probably moving at about 8 to 9 kilometers an hour. Now, one of the things I did want to show here is that the conditions she's moving through are pretty calm, but she's about to hit a bit of a wobble spot. And you can see that highlighted on the orangey sort of pink coloured line there. This is what we call wind shear. It's a fairly low level wind shear, but it does tend to knock the structure of a cyclone off a little bit. And then she is going to be running into some further deeper wind shear, which will likely have more of an impact. Mid layer and some deep shear, which they're not overly strong, but it should knock a little bit of wind out of her sails, pun intended. So that's what's going to happen with Fina, and that's why the forecast is overwhelmingly supporting basically a deteriorating cyclone, and it's going to be pushed in by some steering winds into land. Once she makes landfall, she's likely to degrade down to a tropical low very quickly. So that's why it's favoured in that direction. However, some modelling, and actually one of the bomb access models have picked this up today, is showing that that wind shear is starting to lessen off, meaning those winds are starting to die down. That's the trend. It's now a matter of timing. If Fina can slow down, it's a game changer. Fina may actually find herself pushing back out to sea a little bit, keeping her toes over water, which keeps the circulation of energy going, and may continue to make her way out of Kimberley or even Pilbara waters over the, let's say, the next 7-day or so period. So that is something we're watching very carefully with Fina, because that has not been ruled off the board just yet. Okay, folks, we'll have more on that to come during the week. Let's dive into the weekly outlook, and we'll cap off and all that good stuff. All right, guys, so there's the synoptics for the week. Look, noteworthy systems, not a great deal, just some residual winter systems which will impact the southern parts of the country around midweek. May see an interaction with that, with some very warm air coming down from Queensland, which triggers storms basically through much of the state of Queensland, sort of late week to weekend. And of course, the big picture item is Fina and what Fina does over the coming days. I'll give you a little bit of insight. So if Fina does the dive into Queensland, into the Kimberley region, we may see that sort of re-emergence, broad rotational low over the top end. And what normally happens in these instances, if it gets enough juice flowing, the flow's good from Indonesia, the winds are coming in right across the top end. Once you get that vorticity going, that's when you usually get a tropical low form. If it's strong enough, it usually cuts off from that circulation and usually makes its way west through the Kimberley waters and then sometimes down to the Pilbara waters. So that's what could happen if Fina does the dive into the Kimberleys. If Fina does decide that, yep, the conditions have improved and I'm going to make my way back out off the coast, then the whole scenario just changes. And so without second guessing too much, Fina would be out there, and we may not see that re-emergence of a broad rotational low over the top end. So we just need to watch and see over the next, I would say, 2 days, just to see how things go. I'll update you, of course, on what happens there, because it plays into our longer range. So I can't really say too much more until we see what that environment does and we see what Fina does. All right, folks, as always, a pleasure. Talk to you all very soon. Catch ya.